Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. So I have been talking about a lot of these utility-based projects for a very long time. Now, one thing that's very clear is that adoption is happening. It's picking up. I think everyone at this point is very aware of the adoption as well. I mean, when you think about players like BlackRock jumping in and Fidelity and Franklin Templeton, you kind of start to take notice. But on top of that, the big banks have been also telling us that they want to tap in and utilize these, specific ledgers. They want to actually look into tokenization, and it's already becoming a much bigger piece of the traditional markets. Now, as we do really kind of think about that, are we starting to see the biggest moves happen? No. In fact, when we really think about price action, when we think about the use of these underlying networks, it's not really at scale, and it's not really picking up in a big way because there's still a lot of obstacles in the way of that, like actual full-on regulatory clarity and the green light across the board. But one thing that I have been focused on is the moves actually happening behind these networks, because at some point in time, and I don't think that we have to wait that long, all of that is going to matter in a huge way. So when we think about that, I look at Hedera. And I also look at XDC, because these are two networks and two projects that for the longest time have been overlooked. I mean, even when we think about HBAR, HBAR wasn't a big project up until just recently when people started to take notice of it. And I would argue that it actually didn't happen until we started to break out a little bit back in November into December. But prior to that, a lot of people actually didn't care about what Hedera was doing, even though we were starting to see some of the biggest moves happening, like ServiceNow, for an example, jumping in and becoming a GC member, but also adopting and utilizing specific components of Hedera. And ServiceNow services 80% of the Fortune 500. And when it comes to XDC, well, XDC is still overlooked, even now, even after it did have that nice little jump up back in November into December as well. I would argue that XDC is probably one of the most overlooked projects in this space. I just made a video on it talking about it as well. But the reason why I bring these two up is because they're starting to converge, and they're actually starting to work together. And it all really kind of started off with this event back in March, which was the Tokenizing Real World Assets, the Future of Trade Finance and Institutional Adoption event. And this was with Hedera and XDC at Web3 Iftar Ecosystem Meetup, and even Generation Infinity did quote it and said, Hedera and XDC Network unite on tokenization discussions. Now, this is a big deal because, again, we're starting to see a lot of this space collaborating with one another, and it's all mainly around the utility side of things. For an example, we go back to even the DREC Alliance, which is a huge one to actually mention because of all of the names tied to it. For an example, you have Ripple, you have the XRP Ledger Labs here, Swirls Labs, which is the names behind Hedera, and even the XRP Ledger, Algorand. You have some great, alliance members which are tied right back to the Hedera ecosystem, but then you have the Casper Association, Constellation. And when we think about this, it's kind of crazy, but, we're starting to see the big players that will be, the future Amazons and Apples and Googles of the world working together to make sure that this becomes a reality. And I feel like we're very early on still when it comes to like the biggest moves happening around crypto and the tech. But slowly but surely things are moving very quick. For an example, we just hit almost $20 billion in tokenized assets value, which is a big deal because, again, it's $20 billion. It's not like a very small amount of money, but it is just the beginning. When we get to the $1 trillion mark, that's when things will start to accelerate in a huge way. But the growth from now to that point is going to be very exciting because we are extremely early still on a lot of these major initiatives. And not to even mention, and when it comes to tokenization, we also look at the underlying ecosystems like Archix, like the big players that actually have an ecosystem of solid projects tied to it. And when we think about that, we look at the names that they already have under their belt. We have Algorand here, Polygon, Ethereum, Hedera, Etherlink, the XRP Ledger, XDC, Solana, Arbitrum, and even Algorand. And remember, right, like these are the names that are like, for an example, like Archix is already working with some of the biggest names out there. They're already tapped in with some asset management companies. They have a full stack under their belt in terms of like a tech stack for tokenization. And these are the names that I'm actually looking at because they are working with the utility giants. But on top of that, when we look at this recent events from XDC, we do have the Web3 Iftar Networking Meetup and Demo Day, Hedera XDC Network Unite at XDC Innovation Hub, Dubai, and this got posted on the 4th. Just to give you guys a quick update, we have the Web3 ecosystem witnessed a remarkable evening of innovation, collaboration, and connection at the Web3 Iftar Networking Meetup and Demo Day held at the XDC Innovation Hub in Dubai. This exclusive event brought together Hedera and XDC Network, two leading blockchain protocols, for an unforgettable night of insights and exploration in the world of blockchain and Web3. From live demos and product showcases to networking opportunities with industry leaders, founders, and enthusiasts, the event fostered valuable conversations about the future of decentralized technologies, tokenization, and ecosystem growth. So again, we're starting to see these big networks, even though, when we think about XDC, it's not a big network to a lot of people because they don't actually know about it, but it is becoming a big piece of the Web3 future. And it's actually becoming a big piece of even the TradFi side of things with trade finance, for an example, and even cross-border payments. But these networks actually converging and working together at some of these big events shows us that they are actually serious about, collaborating so that this future is, actually happening. And that future that I'm talking about is a multi-chain future with trillions on top of trillions of dollars tied to it. And with almost every single sector and industry out there, tapped in. Because again, we already know that this is becoming a reality. We look at how big tokenization will be. Every single asset class out there will be affected. Every single market will be affected. I mean, the stock market, for an example, we go all the way back to the summer of 2024, where BlackRock announced that they want to start a tokenized stock market exchange, if you will, in Texas with Citadel. I mean, these things that we're hearing about that kind of get overlooked or forgotten about because of the markets moving so fast. Because I've always stated that a year in crypto is like 4 years in the real world. But this market does move fast. But you can't forget the big moves that have happened. You can't forget, what names are actually now here that have these massive plans for this tech, because so slowly but surely we will get to that point where these things do happen. And when they do happen, everyone will be, completely surprised or at least shocked by, these moves that these big players have been planning for, a very long time, working towards, and now they're finally announcing it. And the world will now see it on, center stage. And they're now aware that this is not, just some small little tech asset class. No, crypto is here to stay. It's becoming a big piece of the real world. And on top of that, we're still under $3 trillion, which is just crazy to me because this is an asset class that will be valued in tens of trillions of dollars. But on top of that, we also have over here a video of this event. And I wanted to play this a little bit because we could see Hedera in the background. It's all mainly based around tokenization initiatives. Here we have, Hedera Tokenize the Future. And then on the right side, we do have the breakdown of XDC as well. Again, these events are very, very crucial to focus on because what we start to see is, a spotlight put on specific, things that these networks are targeting. For an example, I'm sure that trade finance got brought up quite a bit around XDC. When it comes to Hedera, I mean, Hedera is absolutely killing the game in terms of tokenization initiatives. I've always said that these big events are very crucial to focus on simply because of the names that will be in attendance. If you think about it, it's good for community engagement, community growth, and community building. But the main thing I look at is partnerships, connections, and getting the word out there. Again, this event, we might not have seen many big pushes from it or any price action. The main thing about these events is the spotlight put on the tech. And I think that's very important. But it's not just about this event that Hedera and XDC, were a part of, or even like the Archix stuff. It's more so that they're completely in line. They're completely aligned on a lot of these major initiatives that are happening around the space. Like, for an example, the recent ELISA ecosystem connection with the ELISA OS plugin. So XDC Network announced that they were joining this ecosystem. This is a big deal. But what's interesting about this is that Hedera recently started to talk about AI agents in a huge way. Okay, they announced this, AI agents hackathon, which was big, right? It's a big deal. But on top of that, the next few announcements after were Hedera with Eliza OS. Tune in today at 3 p.m. PST for a live coding session with the founder of Eliza OS. Now, this is with, not only Eliza OS, but Hedera's Eliza plugin, and providing a sneak peek at Hashgraph Online's Open Conv AI integration. We actually got a big update from J. Cole, and we have can't wait for live stream later. We're showing something truly next level. Eliza agents communicating via HCS10, Hedera's native agent-to-agent comms protocol. I just built the first ever implementation, connected an AI agent via HCS10, sent a message on a private Hedera consensus topic. Eliza agent picks it up, mints a token, and replies back all natively. Instant finality, AI to AI, cost basically $0. And what's crazy about this is, think about this. All right, you have Hedera and XDC joining together at this big, discussion, right? Because it's a discussion, basically. It's ultimately a meetup discussion around institutional tokenization and just tokenization in general. So they met up here, which was a big deal, right? Nothing too crazy, though. There was not a joint partnership that was announced or anything like that. But then we see Eliza get announced with XDC a day prior to this announcement with Hedera and Eliza as well. We're starting to see these networks aligning. And I think that it actually started even with XRP and XLM. Ondo, for an example, announced a lot of integrations with both of them. And it was kind of like back to back. A lot of these great utility-based projects are starting to work together in a huge way. And I'm very happy about this. But this is something that I've stated many times over, that it's not just about, HBAR is better than this one, or, oh no, HBAR is going to kill this project, or this project is going to be bigger than that project. It's more so about how can we get a piece of, the entire pie. And the best way to do that is by accumulating a lot of these great, utility-based projects that are working together. Because at the end of the day, there's going to be the next Google, there's going to be the next Amazon, the next, Apple, for an example, Microsoft. And I do think that we are starting to see that become a reality. I think that, Hedera and XDC and XRP and a lot of these great projects are going to be those next big tech names. Because at the end of the day, when we think about what's happening here, everything is moving on chain. A lot of the big players are already showing up. We already start to see the big adoption happening around some of these networks. It's only a matter of time until we start to see a much bigger spotlight put on this space, and it become a much bigger piece of not only the global financial system, but the global system as a whole. Because I do think that everything will be moving over digital rails, and DLT will be a crucial, factor around that. And a lot of these great networks like Hedera, XDC, they're going to be tapped in. I've stated it around XDC with trade finance. I've stated it around Hedera with a lot of the integrations that are happening with Hedera, the partnerships with, for an example, NVIDIA and Intel. These are two projects that I think everyone should be paying attention to. I think that now is probably one of the best times to actually be looking at them as well, while they are still down significantly. I mean, if we think about the last year, XDC is up about 55%. The last year for HBAR, it's still up about 48%, nothing too crazy there. So again, the overall gains here across the board, a lot of those major moves that have happened recently are kind of wiped out a little bit. But I think that now is probably the best time to be looking into the space and preparing for, possible more accumulation, DCAing, or maybe just adding to your bag. It doesn't really matter, right? The main thing that I'm thinking about right now is preparing for my future. And I think that when we think about that, we don't just talk about the cycle, right? We're not just thinking about, all right, well, maybe I should be buying right now for the next month or 2 months or 3 months to sell at, the 3-month mark. I'm more so treating this as, a huge investment that, I could step away, come back in about, 3, 4, 5 years and see this entire space growing, 2, 3, 4, 5x. Because again, I think that right now, if we think about the market cap of crypto, 2.65 trillion dollars, I see that growing by at least 2-3x over the next few years. I wouldn't be surprised to see crypto nearing a $10 trillion market cap by 2030. So if we think about that, You know, this space has a lot of growth hitting it very soon. I think that adoption is picking up. I think that the focus is on utility-based projects, and I think that a lot of these utility-based projects, they're already being tapped in by some big names like Archix, for an example, that are starting to not only target, trillions on top of trillions of dollars, but these are being handpicked. These networks are being handpicked because of the efficiencies that they do provide. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely have a like, subscribe, to notifications on for some more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.